Hello, welcome and thank you for joining the webinar 7 Best Practices for Building a Dashboard. My name is Teresa Seidlova, I'm a content creator at GoodData, and I'll walk you through the webinar today. Before we start, let me briefly tell you about our company and go over webinar logistics. After that, you'll dive deeper into tips how to create a professional dashboard. If you haven't heard about GoodData, our company delivers embedded analytics at scale, helping companies to achieve their analytics goals and grow their business. When it comes to webinar logistics, all attendees are muted upon entry. If you have any questions, please use the Zoom Q&A box and my colleagues will answer them for you right away. A follow-up email with the webinar recording will be sent to all participants in case you would like to return to any of the topics or share the recording with your colleagues. That would be all from my side, and I'll hand over to Vašek. Vašku, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Terka. Hello again. My name is Václav, and I'm Senior UX Designer at the Professional Services Department here at GoodData, which means that I'm working on clients' projects and helping customers to understand basically what they actually need from the dashboards. And now let's talk about how to build a dashboard. And I want to give you overview, basically a few tips to get you started, because it's a large topic, so it might be a little intimidating at first. And yeah, basically looking at a blank canvas, not knowing where to start. So I would like to give you the overview and basically a few pieces of puzzle, a few corner pieces or edge pieces from where you can start and build your own dashboards. So definitely you don't need to be afraid of building a dashboard. You will see it's not that hard. Let's start at the very beginning. What is a dashboard anyway? Do you have any idea where it comes from actually? It's older than you might think, and you won't believe me, but it's true. Because this is the first dashboard. It's basically the piece of wood, the board, which was protecting the coachman on the carriage from the dirt, which was thrown out as the horse was dashing through the dirt, which means putting those two words together created the word dashboard. So yeah, those coachmen were actually our first users, and over centuries, this term was also used in car dashboards, for example, with the instrument clusters. But currently, we are talking mainly about business intelligence dashboards, and that's our topic for today. So we left the carriages and continue with business intelligence. Tip number 1 is to understand the problem, because building the wrong product for the wrong users is surprisingly easy. And knowing where to start at the very beginning of this dashboard building process is very important. And you need to focus on solving the right problem, real people's real problem. You need to define it first. And I would say a lot of money was spent on solving the wrong problems. And if you do so, it's typically an expensive mistake, and it's definitely frustrating endeavor for everyone involved. So how to make sure you solve the right problem? You need to ask good questions. You need to get together the stakeholders on the project and just start asking those questions. And open-ended questions like, what value does the product bring to customers? Basically, what's this product about? Why do you want to redesign the product? If you are starting with some current product and you need a new version. And if you do that, what do you want it to do differently? Because there might be some problem with the current product. So what it needs to do differently? And who are the users of those products? Do you have, for example, have you done any research? Do you have any personas outlined? Who are those people? And what are the users looking for and why? What are their motivation behind going to the dashboard? Because no one is just going to look at the numbers just for fun. They need to have a meaning behind that number. And behind the number, there is typically some action, what to do with it, why to check it, why do I need to know this number? And always dig deeper and deeper, ask why, multiple times until you get to the bottom of the things, to the really root cause of those needs and pains. And where to do that, or how to do that? I would like to organize something called requirements gathering workshop at the very beginning of those projects. And it can be done offline or online. If you are offline, it's great to just have a wall with stickies or a whiteboard. And as you are asking those questions, note the answers, and so the participants see them. The same you can do, for example, online in Miro or Mural or any other software like that, which simulates the whiteboard, which allows you to, again, use the stickies. And as you are asking the questions and noting the answers, people can see what you are writing and can adjust it. So after this meeting, like 1 hour, 2 hour meeting, you have like shared understanding of what's going on, what we're gonna build. So tip number 1, to understand the problem, what are you trying to solve? And since we have already the what figured out, there is tip number 2, to know your audience, because you are definitely not your users. Now we are solving who are the users, and you are not your user, definitely not the person sitting next to you, not your colleague, and also not your client, the stakeholders who commission the dashboard. It's typically not the user, not the final user of this dashboard. Remember, you are building a real product for real people, so you need to go and ask those real people. And how to do that? Well, you need to do your homework, do your research in this case. And it might be easier than you think. And actually also quite cheap. Because as was researched, when you interview 5 participants, you get about 85% of insights. So after 5 1-hour long sessions with 5 different people, the future users of your application, of your dashboard, you will have enough insight to have a confidence in what you are building. And just compare this effort, which could be like up to 10 hours in total, with a string of recorded multiple weeks of recurring meetings of many people arguing about the design of the dashboard, how it might be, but they are not the user. Go and ask those people. And on the other hand, it's not just a chat. You need to have at least some script, so those interviews are repeatable. And again, as I mentioned in previous tip, dig deeper, ask about underlying reasons, and try to uncover those needs. And also, if a user mentions some kind of pain point, focus on that, because if you solve pain points for the users, they will be pretty happy. And after you have those 5 sessions, evaluate it, and now you have all the information you need. And in case you need more information, just do another round of 5 interviews. And when to do that? At the beginning of the project, but it's also possible to do such an interview as a prototype testing. For example, when you have some outline of the dashboard done, you can show it again to people and evaluate it. So this is the tip number 2, to know your audience. Let's move to tip number 3, to define the dashboard. Basically now, after those sessions at the very beginning and after the interviews, you have a pile of notes. And you need to, from this textual version, move to something which is more visual. And for that purpose, I like to use wireframes, because wireframes, it's a schematic, it's a blueprint, and it's very useful to help you and the business, technical design, basically all stakeholders on the project think and communicate about the structure of the dashboard you are building. So it's like visual representation. They are definitely fast and cheap to create and easy to change or scrap. It's not a piece of art, so you don't have any emotional attachment to wireframe, so you can easily scrap it and redo it again. And mainly, it's easy to understand. So the main point of wireframe is that it's a great communication tool between all involved parties. Because as you just think about any project you did, where were involved business stakeholders, design stakeholders, technical parties, all those people speak English, but sometimes it might be that they speak little different English and they don't understand each other that well. For example, if you are trying to get the message across with just text. And this visual representation helps you to bridge this gap and to get the message across. And the wireframes, they look like yeah, just pieces of wire. So they make clear that this is not the final design, because there is no design. It's just the structure. They convey the message that this is all up for discussion. This is not this is my artwork, but this is what I think. Let's talk about it. And wireframes also make it clear that no code has been written yet. So it's again easy and fast to change it. And the level of simplification allows the focus on the selected details, because I've been to on many projects when showing a like high fidelity design, some of the stakeholders get caught on tiny little detail which did not really matter because they thought that it's already finished product. So they were arguing for half an hour about a certain number, which was just a placeholder number. So this simplification allows you to focus on just on the selected details. And how to wireframe, how to use it. It's we will explore the 3 levels of fidelity of wireframes. And what I want to demonstrate is that the tool does not matter. It's this visual representation of the problem which is important to build the common understanding. So let's start with readily available tools, which is like pen and paper or whiteboard. Anything you have in the office during the meeting, you can just stand up, go to the whiteboard and just start drawing, start visually representing the problem and trying to solve it. The second level would be some kind of specialized wireframing tool, something like Balsamiq or Whimsical or Miro. Even Miro is like very universal that it also has this like library of wireframing elements. And this is better in certain ways than just the paper, because it's digital and allow you faster iterations and allows you to share it with your colleagues and allows you to collaborate on wireframes. You can imagine it as basically a Lego. You have the box of pieces and you just put them together. And the third level would be some kind of general purpose graphic design tool like Figma or Sketch. It requires like most work up front to create basically your own library of pieces. So you are creating something like your custom Lego. But in the end, if you have this custom Lego, it's fastest to work with. So if you have some repeating process of creating something, creating software, creating dashboards, it could be worth to spend some time on those libraries. So this is how it might look just on pen and paper. I would say one tip for this is grab a thick Sharpie, because it does not allow you to go into too much details. If you have fine liner, just like half millimeter thick pen, you will end up doing all the details. But with thick Sharpie, you are not able to. So this is definitely good for drawing wireframes. Thick pen. The same on whiteboard. It's perfect tool to get you started. The second level would be with the Balsamiq. This is this screenshot of the same dashboard in Balsamiq, so you can see some date filter and product category filter on top, some KPIs, some basic charts. And as you can see, all those elements are in the top in the drawer. So you just take them and drag them to the board and reuse those elements. This is like this standard Lego set. And this would be the highest fidelity level, the Figma, the general purpose graphic design tool, which requires you to most work up front. All those charts which are on the left, I actually spent some time building them, but in the end, I have all the charts which are ready, for example, in GoodData for use, and they are easiest to modify. For example, just tweak the complexity from 12 columns to 30 columns, and group some of those columns and so on. So it's really easy to work with, and in the end, it allows you to for most speed in everyday use. So this is like the level of customized Lego. And now we can jump to tip number 4, because when you are building the dashboard, you are creating those wireframes. It's really important to focus users' attention. Put the important things first, front and center. Let's look at this dashboard from a car. And it's probably some sports car. So you can see the ref counter and the speedo. And the remaining information are in the background. They are not that important right now. And this putting important things first, it sounds obvious, but it's harder to implement. But it depends on the purpose of the dashboard, which you should already know because you did your research, you talked to your stakeholders. So you don't really need here, for example, I don't know, pressure in the engine, or amount of gas which goes into the valves during the as you ride. But the dashboard like this can warn you when something is wrong. And this also works with business intelligence dashboard. You don't need to put everything up front, but only the most important information, like few basic KPIs, some trends for those KPIs, and allow users to go gradually into more details, and also surface when something is wrong. For example, like engine temperature oil here on the car dashboard. So that would be for the tip number 4, to focusing users' attention. So you need to focus it something like a magician, but without this deception part, really. And that brings us to tip number 4, about choosing the right visualizations. Because it's not about building the exhibitions of charts. Your goal, and you should always keep that in mind, is to choose the best chart type for your data and for your users. Choosing the visualization that most clearly and efficiently communicates your data. And users should be able to understand it fast, without big mental effort, and without like long reading of the dashboard. So for this reason, do not shy away from, I would say, quote unquote, boring chart types, something like bar chart or line chart, because they are very effective in communicating the meaning. Humans, they are not built for deciphering complicated charts. And if you represent the value by the length of the bar, that's like the easiest to understand for any human being. So avoid those eye candy charts just for the sake of wow factor. Do not mistake business intelligence dashboard for infographics. They both has their purpose. Infographics are mainly for this, like edutainment, to also be the eye candy, but business intelligence dashboard, they need to transfer the information effectively. And how to choose it? How to choose the right visualization? You need to start with a question, and this one question is really what helps you to decide what to use. And this, what do I want to show to my users? And let's start from the beginning. If you are showing just one big number, something like revenue or number of orders, number of visitors on the website, it could be just one big KPI, one big number. It doesn't need to be a chart. If you want to compare values within and between groups, those charts which use the length of the bar, for example, bar chart or column chart. If you are struggling with names of this, column chart is like based from those Roman columns, you can always tell yourself. And their variations, it's very effective for those comparisons. And there are also variations of those charts, like, for example, bullet chart, which allows you to very efficiently display, for example, the budget and how much do I spend, so how much there is left from that budget. If you show composition, if you need to show a composition of data, there are two kind of obvious choices, which would be pie chart and donut chart, but be very careful with those, because as I said, that humans are very good at comparing lengths. They are very, very bad at comparing angular distances, meaning the angles in the chart. So if you have like 2 or 3 pieces of data which you need to show in the chart, like I don't know, gender between male and female, so they are like 2. That's great for pie chart or donut chart. But if you have more than 2 or 3 elements, for example 10, then it's humans cannot really distinguish between the sizes of the slices in the chart. So do not use pie or donut chart for more than 2 or 3 elements. In that case, there are other variants, for example, tree map, which is a great for comparing those more elements in the composition. If you want to display a change over time, there is one obvious chart, and that's a line chart. It always runs in our culture from left to the right. It might be different in different cultures, but typically dinosaurs are on the left, Star Trek on the right, and this is how most people perceive time in Western culture. And line chart or area chart, they are great for metrics which fluctuates over time. For example, imagine your bank account. There is certain amount of money, then you are paying, so the line goes down, and then you get your salary from your employer, so again the line goes up on different day. And if you need to track day over day things which starts from 0 every day, for example, visitors on the website, then it's good to use column chart, because they always start from 0 and then go up. And again, some variants like stacked column chart if you need to distinguish, for example, by category. If you want to explain relationship between metrics, between 2 or more metrics, this is a bit harder to read chart, but it's best what we have for such a thing to display. So scatter plot or bubble chart, where on each axis you have different metric for the data, or combo chart, which can display relationship over time. So for example, number of orders each day versus total revenue. So you can see whether you are having a lot of small orders or less orders, but which are much bigger. If you want to display geographical data, we have one obvious choice, and that's a map. I would only warn about using the map which is used for like when you fill the country with different shades of color, because sometimes the size of a country does not really represent, for example, its economic strength. So some small countries and very rich, for example, in Europe, it might be Switzerland, might seem to be a little smaller than some other countries which are much larger, Ukraine, but for example, their GDP would be much lower. And if you want to display just a lot of data, like for example, details of a product, there is a good old table, which is very useful for displaying such a details across many columns. They have all the tables definitely have their place on dashboards for displaying those detailed numbers. And that brings us to tip number 6, and it's about giving your numbers a context. Because if you just put a number on a dashboard, it just floats in a space, and it needs to have some context. Because if I just put sales volume 7 million on a dashboard, it might be great, but maybe not if the previous month was, for example, sales 23 million, or if this dashboard is for some large company which would be expected to have like billions of revenue. So to give context, you can use, for example, previous period, how this changed, like this month versus previous month. If you work in some seasonal business, it might be better to compare to same period last year. So for example, sales before Christmas, they are hard to compare to, I don't know, December sales, hard to compare to November sales, but December 2022 is easily comparable to December 2021. So that might be one way how to use context. Another one is that bullet chart I already mentioned. So you can see the budget as a vertical line on a chart, and how much you spent, for example, from a budget for your ad campaign. And one more way how to compare would be a benchmark. That's for areas where the comparison is to your peers. So for example, here it might be number of orders for some brand in some online store, and you compare it to their peers and, for example, to all the brands in the store. So you can see the relative comparison. And last but not least, it's always great or always important to have something like a date range selector on the dashboard. So you see to which date range this number refers to. So it's whether it's a day or month or a year worth of data. So that would be for tip number 6. And that brings us to the last one, to tip number 7, to integrate, basically making sure the dashboard is used. And how to do it? Definitely by making it easy for the users. Easy to use, because if you build something which is hard to reach, no one will use it. So first step would be to use single sign-on. So you eliminate one login for the users, so they can just click and they are in the dashboard. You can integrate it directly to your application. So it might be the analytics could be just another tab, for example, in your application. Or you might go even a step further and you create it as contextual analytics. Basically, for example, you can in your system go to the product details of a certain product you create, and you display it side by side with a chart which shows the sales trend for that particular product. So you have the contextual information. So that would be it. And in the end, it's not that hard. I would say it's not a witchcraft or rocket science to building a dashboard. I would say it's more like blend of craft, some creativity, experience, and the right pieces of knowledge applied at the right time. So I hope I provided you with little pieces of knowledge today, which will be useful for you in the future. And so I would recap it. You definitely need to understand the problem first, solving the right problem for the right users. That would be tip number 2, to know your audience. Remember, you are not your user. You need to go out and ask those real people what they really need. And based on that, you define the dashboard with focus on users' attention, about how they move through dashboard, what they look for. And you choose the right data visualization on the dashboard to represent your data well and to be understandable for the users. Make sure you give your numbers a context, and in the end, make sure your dashboard is used by ideally integrating it into your application. And that would be all from my side. Thank you for your attention. And I'll hand over the word to my colleague Terka.
Thank you, Vaško. I think we learned a lot. And if you are interested to learn more, check out our website. You can sign up for a free trial and try to build a dashboard on your own. Thank you all for your attention and have a nice day.
Thank you.